So we're going to have a panel tonight, and what I'm going to be discussing is, I floated the idea of discussing religion, education, and the separation of church and state. Now, one of the problems with religion, education, and the separation of church and state is education has tended to endorse the ideas that have been presented by the courts as to these myths about religion, okay? Especially as a knowledge tradition. That religion is basically divisive, it is dangerous, it is irrational. So the idea that it is irrational, divisive, and dangerous has been propagated not just through the schools, but it has come from court cases. And so when we talk about it being irrational, one of the things I want to do, one of the things I've endeavored to do in my academic work is to show that religion is not irrational. That the people can be irrational, and there can be beliefs that are irrational, but not all religion by nature is irrational. We could say there are scientists who are irrational and there are scientific theories that are irrational. But not all science and not all scientists are irrational, and neither should that be the case with religion. And that has been one of the myths that has been propagated through the years, through the court system, and it trickles into the schools, and that gets into our culture and into our mindset. Second, is religion divisive and dangerous? Many of the court cases, schools have taught us throughout the history of our education, that there have been religious wars, that the people who came to this country and they were seeking specifically religious freedom from established churches that were oppressive and murderous and all of this stuff. And that is not necessarily the case. I have tried to show that the standard case, when people say religion is dangerous, what do they come up with throughout? What are the two parts of history that they think are divisive and dangerous, or at least dangerous? The Crusades and the Inquisition. And when we get taught the history of Christianity in a public school, we often get taught that the Inquisitions were widespread, that all you had to do was sneeze and you found yourself the subject of an Inquisition where you're being tortured. And this, in fact, is not true. They call it the Leyenda, the Leyenda Negra, the legend of the black legend of the Inquisition. The idea that England, when they taught about Catholicism, their enemy, they taught about this black legend of the Inquisition, that they're just killing their people all over the place, right? And of course, England had its own share of persecutions going on. Well, anyway, Crusades, by and large, were not unjust wars. There's a distinction between the justice of war and justice in war. So you could have a just war being fought, and you could fight it in some instances unjustly, some atrocities that may take place by some individuals at certain times. But it doesn't follow that all instances of those make it an unjust war. You could actually fight an unjust war, a just war unjustly, and you could fight a just war unjustly. I think I should repeat that. Point being, the Crusades were not that. By and large, they were defensive wars, and they lost them mostly. Most of the Crusades were lost. So this wasn't a group of people just ravaging the place. Finally, is it divisive? Does religion divide people? The answer, I would say, is yes and no. Yes, it divides people because religion makes truth claims. And truth claims are either accepted or rejected. But how is that different from any other knowledge tradition? Even in math, there are mathematical realists and people who deny mathematical reality, who deny that numeric value actually exists, that numbers are merely a construction. In science, the vast majority of theories compete with other theories, and it divides people into certain camps. string theory, corpuscular theories of light. They believe different things. Theories of government, which are not religious, causes division. Republicans versus Democrats, capitalists versus communists. So just because something is divisive, it doesn't follow that it cannot be a knowledge tradition and that you cannot find truth through it. But is it divisive by nature? Is religion, does it necessitate division? I would say no, it doesn't. As a matter of fact, I believe that it brings people together. As a matter of fact, every Sunday, people gather at buildings corporately and worship with one another, and they agree on a great many things, and they draw denominational lines as to the things that they believe, and thus there is great cohesion amongst religions. Muslims are distinct in that they agree with each other. Christians are distinct in that they agree with one another, and they are brought together, not separated by these beliefs, but instead brought together. And so we shouldn't, my contention is that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater of religion as a source of justification for knowledge just because there are some irrational people, that because some injustices have been done by what we would call religious people, or that there is division, because that is the same in all areas of knowledge. So my claim is that we should accept religion as a source of justification in as much as it's true, and we should pursue it as a reasonable, rational source of knowledge and a knowledge tradition worth pursuing.